Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Meaningful Communication Show. I'm your co-host, Chad Eaves, along here with Mike Gansl. Welcome to hopefully a warming up March wherever you might be in the country and in the world. Michael, introduce our guest today to our audience.
Hello everyone, Chad and Rob. I just wanted to let you know that today Rob Levin, entrepreneur and speaker, is with us. And I have a few moments to read his bio, which is quite interesting because I've known Rob for a very long time. Actually, it's got to be at least 15 plus years in a variety of different capacities. Rob is a founder of the New York Enterprise Report, which is a media company relied on by over 100,000 business owners and executives. I'm reading this from flyers. And I actually remember the New York Enterprise Report quite well. It was quite an interesting publication. The success of that publication drew national advertisers and led to the creation of the Small Business Awards for the tri-state area. His deep understanding of small, medium-sized businesses not only drew widespread acclaim, but also earned him national recognition, including being named Journalist of the Year by the United States Small Business Association. So he's been a serial entrepreneur with over 30 years of experience. And in 2018, he started a new venture. He co-founded WorkBetterNow, a game-changing venture that provides U.S.-based small, medium-sized businesses with exceptional talent from Latin America. WBN, which is its initials, has already empowered hundreds of businesses to thrive in the face of the talent crisis. And I'm aware of WBN and have actually recommended that to any number of my clients. So we'll start off. We typically start off with maybe a little icebreaker question. So we're going to give this over to Chad, and Rob, you're on.
All right, Rob, just, a little warm-up thing here I like to ask people, and just to see kind of where people are coming from maybe in their headspace is, if you could have dinner with anybody, living or dead, who would it be, and what would you ask them?
Okay, that's a tough question, but I'm going to go with, at least today, I'm going to go with Jerry Garcia.
Okay.
And what would I ask Jerry? I would ask Jerry what the feeling is like. Obviously, when he was alive, what it's like to when he's on stage. What does that feel like? What kind of, is he in like the zone? Is he feeling one with the crowd or with his band? I've always thought about that. It would be Jerry, and that's what I would ask.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's kind of like that high performance, the runner's high, or maybe it's a singer's high, or like you said, just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's an out of body experience. It could be for a number of reasons with him, I guess.
Right.
But but very cool. I think that's the first time we've had Jerry Garcia. So awesome. Mike, what you got?
Well, I'm just contemplating on the question you asked Rob, and I'm really fascinated by it. So I'd ask you, Rob. I have other questions, but I'll ask you this one. What is the largest number of people that you've actually spoken in front of?
Well, I guess it depends. So I used to produce concerts in college, undergrad. So at times I was, I remember introducing Cheap Trick to a few thousand people. So that might be, but as far as from a business perspective, so far I don't think I've done more than like a room of more than 500 people.
That's still possible. Were you nervous?
No, I don't. It's strange. I don't get nervous. Actually, Small Business Awards was almost 500 people first year back in 2006. No, I don't get nervous. I prepare. And I have this weird thing where I don't get nervous when speaking to crowds. Or I once jumped out of a plane and I didn't get nervous, and I thought that was very weird.
Wow. Well, I'm just thinking about that. Wow, that's amazing. So, I see here that you actually started your career as a CPA working for the Big Six when they were the Big Six.
Yeah.
And then, so what made you become an entrepreneur, and how long were you actually a CPA?
I was a CPA for 4 years, right out of undergrad, and then I went to West Coast, got my MBA, came back to New York. So I had always been impressed with, looked up to business owners and entrepreneurs, and there's like a slight difference, but we don't have to go into that now. My dad owned his own business, although he didn't start it. And I think he used to get Inc. magazine, and I used to read that as a teenager. And then even when I was in public accounting at a big firm, a lot of people wanted to get into capital markets, like serving capital markets clients. And I spent my time equally with the real estate division, working with real estate clients, and then what we called back then the enterprise group, which was closely held companies. And I preferred that more. And even though I was even in my first few years at lower levels, just a staff accountant and then a senior accountant, I was sometimes dealing directly with the business owner, and I was always in awe of people who were able to, not only start something from nothing, but run a small business. Of course, even back then, I didn't really know too much about the challenges. I saw what my dad was dealing with, and I saw him operate. But I was just always impressed with that, and I said that's what I want to do one of these days.
So how did you make that leap? So you're a CPA, you're working for one of the Big Six companies, and somebody sort of come over. You had an idea. What was the first business you did?
Well, after I was a practicing CPA, and then after business school, I came back to New York, and I ran other people's businesses, first as a CFO, and then ultimately as a CEO. The last company I worked for, it was a really bad scene. It was a U.S. subsidiary of a small publicly traded UK company. I won't bore you with the details, but it didn't end well. And let's just say there was a big lack of integrity with the board and the former founder of this company. And I said, that's it. I'm never working for somebody again. And I said, all right, I'm going to start a business. And it was an interesting time. I was newly married, and my first kid was on the way.
What year was that?
That was now early 2003. And I had this idea of starting a magazine for business owners. And the idea, remember, this is 2003. The internet was not what it is today. And the past, I guess, 6 years at that point, working for these other companies, I was a CFO, and people think CPAs just know how to be a CFO. And it's not the case. And I didn't know how to set things up, and I had to figure out a lot of things on my own, a lot of trial and error. And what I wanted to do was bring top experts to business owners, sharing their best insights. And that's ultimately, you remember the magazine, Mike. That's ultimately what we did. And I think we really touched upon something really powerful, because we quickly built up a significant audience that said that this was, immensely helpful to them. And that was an amazing time. Great. I'm really proud of what myself and the team did building that up. That said, I will tell you, it wasn't a very profitable venture, even though I did it for 10 years.
I think, what you shared with how you made that transition from employee, into entrepreneur, it's got to be a fairly common one. I had a kind of similar path where I worked for a company, and they made some decisions that didn't pan out. And I was I can make decisions that bad on my own, and that's kind of where I took the leap into having my first business as well. I was reading over your bio, Rob, and one of the things that caught my eye was the work that you do with the assistants and the delegations. And with the clients I work with people in the area of communication and strategy. And especially for the small business people, but it happens sometimes in the big organizations. It's getting people comfortable with delegation, getting them to where they'll take that step back, where they don't have to have their hands on everything. What's your approach to that? What's your experience in working, especially like, hey, you will benefit from an assistant is it like prying their like cold dead hands off of their
Yeah.
processes, or how's that go?
It's a fantastic question, Chad. So first of all, just to clarify, Work Better Now, when we started, it was just providing assistance to business owners. We've now expanded. We do over 40 roles, and a lot of companies consider us their talent partner. They just turn to us first when they have an opening. But this really stems from my personal experience. So I'll give you the short version of this story. A younger entrepreneur, this goes back to 2013, a younger entrepreneur and I were having a discussion, and he said, I can't believe you're the publisher of the New York Enterprise Report and you don't have an assistant. He goes, that's crazy. And he spent some time explaining to me what his assistant does. And he said, look, you know what? I'm tired of explaining this to you. Just hire one and you'll see. And I did. And I think the first one or two didn't work out. But within a few months, I hired one who was with me for a long time. In fact, she's now the general manager of Work Better Now, by the way. And it changed my life. I had other businesses at that time. I sold the New York Enterprise Report in early 2014. There was a part of the business that I held on to that helped large companies market to small businesses. And the more I was letting go, first of administrative things, and then over the past few years in Work Better Now, I've been letting go of a lot of things, the more I was growing. And I had more free time, and I was doing the work that I liked, and I wasn't doing the work that I didn't like. So this whole concept starts first from my personal experience. Now, explaining this to people or convincing them is interesting. Some people get it right away. They go, you know what? You're right. It's time. I should do this. And they're hearing it not just from us, but Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach says the best investment you can make, bar none, is getting an assistant. And guys like Jack Daly, and Mike, you saw Jack Daly at the event we did in January. Jack says you either have an assistant or you are one. There's been a lot of people for a number of years saying that this is me. People hear it constantly. So some people get it right away. Some people struggle with, how do I delegate? How do I let go? What do I delegate? What do I let go? And we've written plenty of blogs on that. I've done podcasts and webinars and all of that stuff. And I can easily, explain to people how to start, which is just write down all the things you do during the day. Put 2 columns. So this is within my unique ability, and this is what I should be focusing 80% of my time. Or this is everything else, which means I got to get somebody else to do it. And those people eventually, they hire an assistant, and then what I hear is, damn it, I should have done this 5 years ago. Because it does change your life. And then there's a small group of people, and by the way, I can tell usually within 2 or 3 minutes when I speak to someone, there's a small group of people that will never let go.
But Bob, not to interrupt, but quite frankly, it's very interesting. I'm a business consultant. I work with what I call the accidental business owner, and actually, all 3 of us are that accidental business owner. We work for other companies. We wake up one day, and we say, we can do this, and we go out and we do it. And we don't have a lot of expertise to do it, but we just go ahead and do it. Now, but what I find when I'm consulting, and I think you agree with me on this, is that in the beginning, you do everything. You have 10 fingers, your 2 hands, you do everything. And as the business begins to grow, everything that you did to get there doesn't work to get to the next level.
Right.
And that has everything to do with the fact that you're doing everything, which you shouldn't be doing everything. And that's exactly what we find. So I find when I'm consulting and working with businesses, that's really the key. Learning how to delegate, as you said earlier, and then giving up areas. When you draw those 2 columns, what is your unique ability and what is not, and then moving on from there. And that's when people grow their business. Of course, that's when they realize they have to make an investment in their business, and that's another story.
Yeah. I mean, I would, having, the experience over the last 20 something years in doing what I've done, I would actually say that if somebody's thinking of starting a business, and let's just assume they have a little bit of capital to invest, right? I would suggest that they hire an assistant on pretty much on day one. It'll increase your trajectory considerably. Now, if you're still in the experimental stage, which is the way most people should look at a startup, is it's just a series of experiments until you've proven product market fit and a few other things. But that's the first thing they should do is hire an assistant. It will. If had I done that when I started the New York Enterprise Report, I would have been much further along much sooner. There's no question about it. And when I started this and other companies, I always have an assistant. That's going to be I'm going to have an assistant the rest of my life, no matter what I end up doing. I assure you. And it's not just that helps me professionally, but also with personal things. But going back to what you said, it really never ends in terms of constantly refining what your unique ability is, and then constantly letting go of new stuff. So we on Monday we have we just hired a chief revenue officer that's going to be doing a lot of things. She has expertise way beyond mine, but I was running marketing. I'm now realizing like I need to let go of that. I'm not the expert. There's other things I need to do in the company. I'm in EOS terms, I'm the visionary, including doing a lot more speaking and thinking about the future and working with the teams in the company on creating wow experiences, which is also something that is one of my unique abilities. So it never ends. You're constantly, I think you're constantly evolving. At least you are if your business is growing.
What would you advise someone, Rob, if they're looking at starting to do that? Is there, I guess, the different options? Like you can hire someone full time. Is there like a part time or like a fractional assistant, or what does work better now? Like, what's your approaches when you work with someone that's beginning to use an assistant or what they want to do?
Yeah, so just sticking with the assistant role, not all of the different roles, because that is uniquely different, right? Because all those other roles, you just have a job opening and you're turning to us for that. With the assistant, it's a little different. The assistant, you've got to come to a number of different conclusions eventually that, hey, this is the right thing to do. So in terms of getting started, first of all, we only do full time, and the reason we only do full time is because we think no matter. Even for those people who think I only need a part-time assistant, we get this all the time. You should go full-time. And I'll tell you why. And there's a few reasons for it. Number one, if you're going part-time, chances are your assistant is doing part-time work for somebody else. This means a few things. A, it means that they don't think about you from 9 to 5, right? And what I've learned is you want somebody's full time and attention, right, into your business while they're working. B, that other client that they're serving or clients might hire them full time, which means you're now out of assistant. Now, yeah, you can have your outgoing assistant train a new one and all of that. But that's one really. Those are actually two really important reasons why you should go full time. Maybe the most important one is that everybody thinks, oh, well, I only have 10 hours worth of work to do. But what happens almost every time is, yeah, you do initially just have 10 hours of work. That's exactly how I started. And then you get more comfortable with the assistant. And the assistant all of a sudden magically has more capabilities than you thought that they did. And all of a sudden you're giving them more and you're giving them more. And before you know it, by the end of that first month, they're busy easily 40 hours a week. And then, if you're working with a company like us, where you have talent from outside of the US, in our case, Latin America, the cost benefit analysis is it's through the roof. So you can get somebody part-time or, for $2,350 a month, you can have somebody full-time. Why would you not do that and see what other things that person can do, either for you or other people in the business, so that you can focus on unique ability and higher value activity.
So, Rob, in 2018, was the premise to start with Latin American personnel?
Oh, yeah.
And how did you come to that?
Number one, that was my experience. Not only my experience, but because of what I used to do with the magazine, I know a lot of business owners, and everybody was, when they were booking, friends and colleagues, when they were booking appointments, they were hearing from Jessica, who was my assistant. They said, Jessica, like I've been to your office, I didn't see anybody there. And I said, yeah, she's in El Salvador. And they were like, oh, how do I get a Jessica? And I was referring them to to the same company that Jessica was working for. And then, so my experience was Latin America. And there was when I started the business in 2018, I realized I can do this better than this other company's doing it. And I started with a partner, and together we did just that. But we liked Latin America for a number of reasons. Again, personal experience, but very talented people. Same or adjacent time zones. Very, very important. A lot of people overlook that one. Very similar cultures, certainly as compared to other parts of the world. And in general, the attitude when they're working with you is unbelievable. It's quite different than what a lot of people might be dealing with otherwise. Just very polite and respectful and appreciative. It's just a delight. In fact, our company, 83% of our company is located in Latin America. So not only do we have 360 or so people working for our clients, but everybody who runs WorkBetterNow, other than 3 salespeople and now the chief revenue officer, myself and my partner, our entire company, including our leadership team, is based in Latin. Amazing pool of talent.
So now 2018, Chad, I'm sorry, do you have a question or?
No, go for it.
Okay, so it's now 6 years later. You started the business in 2018. You're going into year 6. What are the challenges that you have now that are different from before? You mentioned you have 360 people. Well, that's big. You've grown. You didn't have 360 people when you started. So tell us about the challenges you're having now.
Yeah, great question. So one challenge is one that I just mentioned that we're addressing. We get a tremendous amount of referrals. In fact, almost all of our growth has come from referrals, which is awesome. But we know that we can help a lot more companies. And to do that, we have to go beyond referrals. And leading the marketing team, I was unable to figure out how to do that. We tried different ad agencies, all sorts of stuff. So that's when we decided to hire either a chief marketing officer or chief revenue officer, which is what we're going to probably end up developing new sales channels and all sorts of stuff. I think Lisa, who's starting on Monday, is going to do a fantastic job. That's been a challenge. Up until we started running on EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. I don't know if everybody's familiar with that. It's just kind of a way to run your business. It's a framework. Up until then, there were times when we were going around in circles, but EOS really helped us straighten that out. Now, I just came back a week ago today from the Dominican Republic, where we had our leadership retreat with our leadership team. And I got to tell you, I was really blown away with how not only their embrace. What I told the leadership team is the next 10 months are going to be unlike anything we've ever seen, because we just had a record month in February, and now we're going to be implementing over the next few months different things, different tactics, different strategies to go beyond referrals, which is going to increase our growth rate. And we're already growing at a pretty healthy clip. And, that's going to require all sorts of stuff. We're going to have to automate even more than we're doing it now. We're going to have to, really button down the processes and all of that other stuff. And I was very impressed with how the team said, all right, we got a lot to do here. We have a department that we need to fix, our success coach department, which hasn't been running the way we envisioned it. We now put somebody else in charge of that. So that's something else that we're working on. And at the end of the day, Mike, I guarantee you we're going to have challenges in 6 months that we didn't even anticipate. It's just the way, you think you get to a certain level and your challenges go away. They don't. You just get different types of challenges.
No, you're getting within the same year, literally, pretty much every quarter, things keep changing, sometimes even faster. And it really is a question of being nimble. I think the greatest challenge in growing a business is remaining as nimble as you were in the beginning. Because, and I know for myself, when I started my own business, I looked at it as a U-boat. We were a U-boat. Then we became a battleship. And then ultimately we became an aircraft carrier. And moving that aircraft carrier was a lot harder than moving that U-boat or that battleship. And so that comes with growth. So earlier you mentioned you had 40 different roles that you provide. Can you tell us something about those? What kind of roles? one thinks of a virtual assistant, sort of maybe a little myopically. So give us a little more insight into these
Yeah,
roles.
I'll tell you what our more common ones are, and this does sometimes evolve, and it can depend also on the industry of the company that we're working with. Some of the common roles are marketing coordinators, um, a number of different people within different bookkeeping functions. Both, you have people in companies where there's a lot of receivables, people who are managing that and collections, as well as we have people that are dealing with payables. We have project managers, so people who are within different types of companies, making sure that projects are staying on track, and all of the things that come along with that. Um, Customer service reps. We have a number of people who support the sales function. Some people are doing inside sales, so inbound leads come in and they're handling it. And then others are doing research around leads. So those are, I'm probably forgetting a bunch. Then we have some very interesting industry specific roles. So I have a friend of mine who has a messenger service business here in New York, and he's got 8 or 9 of our people. He hired somebody as a traffic safety coordinator. He's got drivers that have an app on their phone and that give them scores and reports. And he analyzes this from his home in Panama and gets on the phone with the drivers and helps them improve their scores. And then we have people in construction companies that are in the estimating department, supporting the estimating department. Just to, you get to these bigger, more common roles, and then you get to some very unique ones too.
Cool. Yeah, you said something just a moment ago, Rob, about the automation aspect. And it just so happened yesterday evening, I was moderating a panel on AI at Northwestern. And one of the topics that came up was, obviously automation's a factor, but also from a global aspect, as far as its role in integrating workforces with different languages and stuff like that. Like it can do like the translation function or stuff like that. Has that something that you guys have seen yet at this point or are thinking of, or how do you see that factoring into what you do?
AI in general?
Yeah, AI, yeah.
Yeah. So it's great question. When ChatGPT, maybe a month or two after ChatGPT came out, which was late 2022,
Yeah.
I realized that there's a huge opportunity for us here. So I said AI is going to be a huge part of our company. And I said, ultimately, and we've now started this, but let me tell you how we did it, because it's kind of interesting. I said, ultimately, all of our professionals we call them either WBN professionals or remote professionals that are working for our clients. We are going to AI enable them as long as they want to do that in almost all. I said, but before we do that, we have to start using AI ourselves. Now, being the visionary, I'm the guy who says AI is going to be a major part of the company. I'm not the guy who's going to figure out how. I'm a little older, or a lot older than most of our workforce, which means they're more digital natives than me, even though I had a Texas Instruments computer as a kid and stuff. And I said, they're going to figure it out. So the first thing we did is I mentioned this to the leadership team, and I said, just go start experimenting, document everything. We're now starting to blog these out department by department, how we're using AI. And so they did that, and some things we now, after a few months, we were using AI in certain roles and not certain roles, certain tasks and processes, right? Certainly, when English isn't your first language, having AI reread your emails and other things, that's very helpful. But that's like table stakes, right? That's like basic stuff. By the way, people in the US are not necessarily the best writers either. People should be using AI as well. I just used it yesterday in crafting an email that's going to go out to clients. So the leadership team started to do this, and then we got the entire company on. Again, just go experiment, try different things. And we started, I think at the time it was bi-weekly, AI show and tell, where the entire company gets together and some people present what they did and what worked and what didn't work. And it's been it's the meeting that I think everybody looks forward to the most now. So we're using it in the recruiting function. We're using it in anything that involves writing. We've actually used it for analysis, um, and we're just getting started. And now we're starting to roll out training, not that we're putting together, but that other parties are putting together. We're putting together courses for what we call WBN Academy. This is ongoing education for everybody, for our team as well as our professionals. And then when it comes to automation, we've been automating almost, maybe not since day one, maybe since like year two. Initially using things like Zapier, which is a great tool for automation, and now we have HubSpot, and we're using automations in HubSpot not just on the sales side and the marketing side, but throughout the company. Automation is something that everybody has to leverage, so that you let people focus on what they do really well, which is use their brain, not repetitive tasks that a computer can do better. It reduces mistakes. It makes things faster. So those two together now are really going to be powerful for those. I'll go as far as saying companies that are not going to be embracing those technologies are going to fall behind in many different ways.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. I think the challenge really is going to be is that we keep moving up the ladder in technology. Every company has to keep moving up the ladder. And so if you're providing a level of service which AI or automation or some of the programs you mentioned can do, then you don't need a person to do it. And if that company is providing those types of people with that level of skill set, they're going to go out of business.
Look at WorkBetterNow. You can make that argument that somebody said, oh, aren't you worried all of your people are going to be replaced by technology? I said, first of all, it's not happening overnight. Second of all, actually, what our people are going to do is they're going to be the ones to integrate AI into the company so that they can do work that adds more value.
That's right. And you mentioned earlier a success coach department. You want to mention what that is?
Yeah, that's the department that works with our professionals, or we call them RPs, that works with the professionals. Everything from their career to if there's a challenge with the client, they help the client onboard the professional if the client needs that assistant. If there's an issue with the client, they're the ones who go in and resolve it with a number of different options.
Very interesting customer service. That's very cool. I sadly, I think you're probably in the minority, which is a great competitive advantage for you, of organizations that take that approach.
It's interesting you say that, Chad, because when my partner and I started this business, we were relatively seasoned entrepreneurs. The experience with the New York Enterprise Report in so many different ways is very powerful for me. What we didn't know how to do was to run whatever you want to call us, a staffing company or a remote professional company, a talent partner. We didn't know neither of us had experience in doing that. And in a way, there's an advantage to that, right? Because we're not going to do things the way everybody else is going to do it. And we didn't sell the same way. Our business model was largely different. We're just going to focus on our two sets of constituents, which is our clients and our talent, and we're going to just build everything around that.
Well, we're a little over 30 minutes, so we'll start wrapping up here. My final question, and then I'll hand over to Mike for his, and then for you for your final comments here, Rob. If there was a piece of advice you'd want to give to yourself, like the 20 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever it is, what would it be?
There's probably a few things that immediately come to mind. Number one, I would have had a little bit more urgency when I started the New York Enterprise Report. I would have hired sooner instead of doing everything myself, which is what I did. Finally hired a freelance editor, and then we went on from there. I would have hired salespeople sooner, all of that. Before starting the business, I probably would have evaluated it a little differently. Mike, you can tell me what you thought. I think myself and the team, I thought we created an amazing magazine and events and all of that stuff. I mean, really good. But from a business standpoint, I was entering the media business at the wrong time. Certainly the print media business, right? Had I started that business 10 years earlier, I have multiple more zeros, in my bank accounts. But the truth is, I started at the wrong time, and the signs were probably there. Unlike with Work Better Now, where I got, some of it's luck, but I really got the timing. My partner and I got the timing down. So I would have challenged the whole business model a little bit more aggressively.
It's interesting, Rob. Obviously, I've been an entrepreneur and a business owner as well. I started a company, ran it for 15 years, and some of what you say, really resonates with me. Certainly, although I would say that, timing, timing is what it is, and quite frankly, I don't think there's good time or bad time. If you're compelled to start a business, you start it.
I agree with that, which is a little different than what I said, though, right? It wasn't so much trying to time it. It was the business model that I had wasn't reflective of where the market was going, right? Because
Yes,
dollars all went to the internet.
yes, but you were ready. So, I mean, the issue was you were ready to do it when you did it. Now, had you evaluated it beforehand, you might not have even started that business. Maybe you might start something else, but you might not have even started anything. But it is a challenge, and certainly we could go on because there's so much that I can relate, and I'm sure Chad can. So I want to wrap it up. I'd say that you mentioned. You see, I'm a student of business, just like Chad, just like you. And so you mentioned some names that I'd like to just reiterate to the audience. One was Dan Sullivan, who's written a book. I mean, his latest book is 10x is easier than 2x. But the premise that Dan Sullivan has is what is unique ability, and basically focus on that unique ability to grow your business. And as you said, let other people do the things that are their unique ability, which is not yours. That's an important thing, and I hope our audience takes a look at some of the work that Dan Sullivan has done. The other you mentioned EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operational System, which is Traction and Gino Wickman. And that's a very interesting approach as you talk about yourself not necessarily being the CEO, but being the visionary and having having an integrator who might be your COO or so on and so forth, and then building your organization around that. So if anybody's out there, Traction, Gino Wickman, Entrepreneurial Operating System is a good book to read. And then I would mention one other book, which comes very early in this picture, by Michael Gerber, called The E-Myth Revisited. And what's fascinating about that is when you talk about, of course, unique ability, but there he talks about when you start a business, you're the entrepreneur, you're the manager, you're the technician, you're everything. And until you systematize your business using EOS or understanding unique ability, etc., you're not a business. And you will not be able to grow until you figure that out. So again, E-Myth Revisited, Michael Gerber. These are really, I think, very important books for people to read, skim, know, learn about in their quest to be an entrepreneur. So
the concepts around a unique ability, let's 10x aside for a second. Concepts around unique ability, and also another one by Dan Sullivan, Who Not How, and the concept of Gerber stuff and working on your business and not in your business and systems and process. Those are actually simple concepts to at least get your head around, not necessarily easy to execute. EOS there's a lot more to it. It's you actually got to read that book or watch a whole bunch of videos where the other concepts are literally 5-minute conversations. The books are great, but you don't have to read them.
Oh, well, that could be another podcast that we could do. Chad, I'm going to give you the last word, and then.
Yeah. So as we get ready to exit here, Rob, any last thoughts or anything you want to share with the audience? How to get in touch with you, or anything else?
I would say, if you're a business owner and you don't have an assistant, I don't care if you hire one from us or somebody else. Just get an assistant. That's maybe the most powerful thing that I could say. And then, if you have multiple employees and you're probably dealing with the talent crisis. We have a shortage of qualified, affordable, and motivated labor in the U.S., and that's not going anywhere. Really consider nearshore, offshore options. There's a world of great talent out there, And you can find us all and a lot of content around this at workbetternow.com.
And we'll put that link in the show notes as well. Rob, thank you. It's been an awesome conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Great meeting you, Chad. Mike, great to see you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. So we'll see you again. Thank you, Rob. This was really terrific. I learned a great deal, and I hope our audience will as well. Take care, everybody.
And for those of you watching this on YouTube, don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well.
I guess we're out.
All right.
Bye.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.